Hi, how are you? It's Dr. Muso. Today we want to talk about the French Revolution. We want to talk about the causes that led to the revolution of 1789. The people in France in 1789, they to rebel against the French, our government, they to rebel against Louis the 16th together with his wife Mary Antoinette. So we want to look on the causes that led to the French Revolution of 1789. But before looking on those causes that were responsible for the Revolution of 1789, let's look on the background information which led this revolution to eventually erupt or to eventually take place in what in 1789. So we see that France we had a population of 28 to 29 million, and the people who were in the country, as they were divided into different classes, they enjoyed different privileges. The upper nobilities, they enjoyed so many privileges, and those privileges that were enjoyed by the upper nobilities, they were not enjoyed by the lesser and the nobility of the wrong. The same applies with the clergy. The clergy consisted of the bishops, the archbishops, and the priests. And in the church now, the archbishops and the bishops, they enjoyed so many privileges, and the priests did not enjoy the privileges that were enjoyed by the archbishops and the bishops. The same applies with the middle class. The middle class consisted of those people who were educated. They did not enjoy so many privileges in the country that were enjoyed by the upper nobilities, despite the fact that they were educated, despite the fact that these people now they were highly educated. So that on its own, it led these people to preach about the ideas of liberty, equality, and fraternity. The peasants again suffering in the country, not enjoying similar privileges that were enjoyed by the upper nobilities. So the class system, the issue of separating the privileges that were in the country now, it explains why the revolution eventually broke out in 1789. So we now want to look on the causes that led to the revolution of 1789. So let's write some heading: the causes of the French Revolution. The causes of the French Revolution. What led the people to rebel in 1789? So we want to talk about the causes. Cause number one, let's talk about the system of government. The system of government. Here we are talking about the government of Louis the what? The 16th. The government of Louis the what? The 16th. We discover that it was despotic in nature. Louis, he was a despotic leader. He was a tyrant, or he was an authoritarian. He possessed all the political powers. So he had to appoint ministers. He had to dismiss ministers. That on its own frustrated the people, in the sense that people who were in the government, they were supposed to be voted for by the people. So it explains why the people had to rebel in 1789. Why? It was because of the system of government which was tyrannic, which was despotic, he was an authoritarian leader. So the system of government led to the revolution of 1789. Number two, we talk about the character of Louis the 16th. His character again, it led to the revolution of 1789. Why? He was interested in outdoor pleasures such as hunting and fishing. Instead of concentrating on the reforms that were going to benefit the people, he was not worried about that. He was interested in other activities that had nothing to do with the people. So the character of Louis the 16th explains why the revolution of 1789 occurred. Number three, we talk about the American War of Independence. American War of Independence. It also led to the revolution of 1789. We see that France had to participate in this war. Louis the 16th, he was warned by Louis the 14th not to involve France in expensive wars, but he could not listen. So when he participated in the American War of Independence now, it brought financial challenges in the France, in the sense that the country it was left without enough resources. The money we see that it was spent on this war, and after the war now, France was now bankrupted. So the participation in the American War of Independence, it caused a financial problem in the country. Added to that now, on the American War of Independence, we also see that the soldiers who participated in this war, they saw how America was governed. In America, there was liberty, there was equality, there was fraternity. People in America, they were free to express themselves. They were free to criticize the government. So by so doing, those soldiers who participated in the American War of Independence, after the war, they returned back. When they returned back now, they started to tell the fellow people, fellow citizens who were in the country about what they experienced in America. So that on its own, it explains why the people in 1789 had to say enough is enough, and they rebelled against the government of Louis the 16th. They were conscientized about what was taking place in other countries, especially in America, explaining why the revolution had to take place in 1789. Number 4, you move on, you also talk about the issue of taxes. People were made to pay so many taxes. They paid the direct taxes, they also paid the indirect taxes. These taxes now, they were increased time and again. The people who collected these taxes, they were brutal, they were cruel, they brutalized the people, they beat people, forcing people to pay taxes, and the people were angered by this. Why? It is because they were facing severe challenges. They were facing severe hardships. So by so doing now, the people now, they started to be frustrated about what was taking place. Why? It is because they were made to pay taxes that were beyond their reach. So the peasants, the middle class now, had to rebel in 1789. Why? It was because of taxation. Number 5, we move on to talk about the influence of philosophers. Influence of philosophers. Philosophers, they were the people who were educated. You talk about Diderot, you talk about Voltaire, you talk about Montesquieu, you talk about J.J. Rousseau, who once wrote that although a man was born free, but he was always in chains, the people, they were born free, but they were always suffering. They were always enduring hardships. They were always dying because of poverty. So these philosophers, they started to preach about the ideals of liberty, equality, and fraternity. Their ideals explains why the people had to say enough is enough. In 1789, the people now had to rebel against the French government. Why? It is because of the ideas that they were being taught by the philosophers. Number 6, you move on, you also talk about the drought of 1788. The drought of 1788. In 1788, France did not receive adequate rainfall. So because of that now, people started to face severe problems of food. Food was now scarcity. People were dying because of hunger. People were dying because of poverty. The people expected the government to assist them. But now the government could not do much to assist the people who were suffering. Mary Antoinette, the wife of Louis XVI, was even quoted as saying, if they cannot buy bread, let them buy cakes. That on its own led the people to be further frustrated. Why? It is because Mary Antoinette was not considerate. Why? Because people were suffering, and she was saying that people were supposed to buy cakes. So the drought of 1788 explains why the revolution of 1789 took place. Then you move on, you talk also about number 7, you talk about the character of Mary Antoinette. Character of what? Mary Antoinette. Mary Antoinette was the wife of Louis XVI. She was not educated. According to her mother, Queen Teresa confessed that her daughter did not have a good taste of education. So the character of Mary Antoinette now, it explains why the people had to rebel against Louis XVI. The people in France expected their king to marry someone who was educated. So we are saying the character of Mary Antoinette led to the revolution of 1789. Added to that now, we also see that she had to go to the brother Leopold of Austria. She wanted Leopold of Austria to assist the people in France. Also, that she was coming from Austria. Louis had to marry Mary Antoinette, who was coming from Austria, and Austria was hated by the people in France. That on its own, it brought anger to the people. It was because of the 7-Year War. On the 7-Year War, France was embarrassed by Austria. The French people, they were embarrassed by the Austrians. So people in France, they hated Austria. They did not want anything to do, or they don't want to be associated with Austria. So Louis, by marrying a person from Austria, it led people to be angered, frustrated, again leading to the revolution of 1789. Then you move on, you also talk about Mary Antoinette now. We see that she was extravagant. She bought pairs of shoes every week. She also had so many servants. That on its own frustrated the people. She had so many horses. That extravagance of Mary Antoinette explains why the revolution of 1789 took place. Then you move on, you also talk about another cause, the issue of social classes. The issue of social classes. What are we talking about here? We are talking about the people in France are being divided into different social classes. You talk about the nobilities, you talk about the clergy, you talk about the middle class, you talk about the peasants. These classism that existed in the country frustrated the people. Why? Because the people in these classes enjoyed different privileges. The people in France wanted equality, and there was no equality in the country. Again, people were frustrated, leading to the revolution of 1789. Then you move on, you also talk about another cause, which was the calling of the State General. The calling of the State General in 1789. Louis had to call for the State General. Come, come. Why? Because of the serious problems that were taking place in the country. When he called for this State General, he did not have an agenda. So by so doing now, the situation became revolutionary. Why? It is because the first state it was supposed to meet in another room, the second state in another room, the third state in another room. But the third state now, they are talking about the peasants and the middle class. They defied to go in their rooms, and by defying to go to their rooms now, they rebelled against Louis XVI. So the State General, it was the immediate cause that led to the French Revolution of 1789. So we see that it spanned the Revolution of 1789. Then lastly, we talk about the financial crisis, the issue of financial crisis leading to the Revolution of 1789. France was now in a serious financial crisis. Why? Bankruptcy came because of participating in the American War of Independence, the extravagance of Mary Antoinette, the extravagance of the upper nobilities. Again, it led to a serious financial crisis. It was this financial crisis now that led Louis to call for the State General to see how best they were going to solve this serious problem that was taking place in the country. But when he called for this State General, we see the war, we see that the revolution are taking place in 1789. So these are some of the causes that led to the French Revolution of 1789. Thank you so much. It's Dr. Musso.